Good morning. It is good to be in the house of the Lord. We're in Ezekiel chapter 40 today. Open up your Bibles. And this starts the end section of Ezekiel, where he is looking in the future, beyond the time where the Antichrist comes back. So this is probably millennial kingdom time. It doesn't quite say exactly. You get an idea that this is a heavenly view, but also an earthly view. He gives, you might get bored with dimensions and stuff like that, but I'm always fascinated by the different ways that God builds things. Sometimes it's a square, sometimes it's a rectangle, and in this case, this temple is going to be a huge square. It's kind of interesting. But you just look and you see the outer courtyard, you see things, and they're going to have sacrifices. Why sacrifices? Jesus was our perfect sacrifice. Well, I don't know. Best thing I can think of, and maybe it's like a memorial of what Jesus did for them, because sin is covered by Jesus. Will people still be sinning on the earth? Absolutely. And without Christ, there's no forgiveness of sin without His shed blood, right? But the blood of the sacrifices did what? It didn't take away the sins. It covered up the sins. Let's just call it atoned for. So atonement meant to be at one meant. You can break down atone meant at one meant atonement. So it helped people to become one with God. So God covered their sins so that He could be with them, because God can't even look upon sin. So let's just take a gander here. He says, in the 25th year of our captivity, in the beginning of the year, in the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after that the city was smitten. So 14 years after Jerusalem was destroyed, we're right around 574 BC, give or take, and says, in the self-same day the hand of the Lord was upon me, and brought me thither. Where's thither? Don't know where God took him, but God took him somewhere. All right. And when the hand of the Lord was on, brought me in the visions of God, brought He me into the land of Israel, and set me upon a very high mountain. There's no real high mountains in Israel. Maybe Mount Hermon, but so this is a new mountain, right? So something's going to happen. What's going to happen when Jesus comes back and sets His foot on the Mount of Olives? It's going to split in half. A new valley is going to form, right? Water is going to be gushing up out of the temple and rushing down into this new valley, and it says that it's going to fill the Dead Sea, and the Dead Sea will be filled with fishes and alive again. So something big is, and then so evidently the geological earthquake, a tenth part of the city is wiped out. So the whole area is going to change from what it looks like today. And then you're going to have a very great mountain. I guess this will be Mount Zion. But that's not where the temple is. But it's going to be Mount Moriah, Mount Zion. It's going to rise up. So He takes him to this very high mountain, by which was as the frame of a city on the south. So He's looking, and He could see the city, a frame of a city. And He brought me thither. So there's thither, is on the mountain. And behold, there was a man, whose appearance was like the appearance of brass, with a line of flax, a measuring string, in his hand, and a measuring reed. And he stood in the gate. Now, the Romans had a measuring thing that had the flaxen, had 4 flaxen things with lead weights at the bottom, and they would use it as their astrolabe, and they would measure out, and they would use it to make sure that everything was level, flat, and square. That's why the Romans were such good architects, such good road builders, because they would measure everything and make sure. Well, the same thing here. The Jews were extremely good at this, at building, especially with stone. But this particular man, perhaps it's Jesus, maybe not, but He's appearance of brass, so he's not. It says he's a man, but he doesn't look human to me. You know anyone that looks the appearance of brass? Burnished brass is very shiny, right? You ever seen it shined up? And the man said unto me, Son of man, behold with thine eyes, and hear with thine ears, and set thine heart upon all that I shall show thee. For to the intent that I might show them unto thee, art thou brought hither? This is the reason why I brought you, is to show you these things, in other words. Declare all that thou seest to the house of Israel. That's what I want you to do. I'm going to show you all this, and then I want you to declare it to the house of Israel. They may not understand, but obviously this particular prophecy, this particular forecast is for Israel, okay, for Israelites to understand, and they're gonna understand because they could remember their temple. They could remember it's only been 14 years since Jerusalem was destroyed. The temple was destroyed, so it's still fresh in their mind what the temple looked like. They'd been there. Every male had been there at least twice a year. Some of them lived in there. Some were pulled out, but so many were murdered. An insane amount of people were killed in the destruction and overthrow. It says, and behold, a wall on the outside of the house, round about, and in the man's hand a measuring reed of 6 cubits long by the cubit, and a hand breadth. So he measured the breadth of the building 1 reed, and the height 1 reed. So 6 cubits is from your elbow to your top fingertip. A span is from your thumb to the end of there. So it was 6 cubits and then a span. That's how tall the reed was. And he took that reed and he said, this is how tall the wall is. So a reed of 6 cubits long by the cubit and a hand breadth. So he measured the breadth of the building 1 reed, and the height was 1 reed. And he came unto the gate which looketh toward the east, and went up the stairs thereof, so 7 stairs, and measured the threshold of the gate, which was 1 reed broad, and the other threshold of the gate, which was 1 reed broad. And so this is the area of the gate where there'd be pavement, there'd be chambers, so every little chamber was 1 reed long. And the chambers on the side would be where the temple business would be conducted with the priests. This is as you walk into, he says, the building, the temple. And it doesn't call it temple here. It's kind of interesting. It calls it a building. And the threshold of the gate by the porch of the gate was with 1 reed. And he measured also the porch of the gate within 1 reed. Then he measured the porch of the gate 8 cubits, and the post thereof 2 cubits, and the porch of the gate was inward. So it's talking about the outer area outside the doors of the temple, but there's no doors that he says yet. In fact, they said there's no doors. They said that there's no light in the temple. Why? Because Jesus is the light in the temple shining out from it. It's kind of interesting. It's a little different from us. It doesn't say that here, obviously. But it says, and the little chambers of the gate eastward were 3 on this side and 3 on that side, and they were of 1 measure, and the post had 1 measure on this side and on that side. And he measured the breadth of the entry gate 10 cubits, and the length of the gate 13 cubits. The space also before the little chambers was 1 cubit on this side, and the space was 1 cubit on that side, so it had a little extra little space there, and then then you could enter into these chambers. And the little chambers were 6 cubits on this side and 6 cubits on that side. He measured then the gate from the roof of one of the little chambers to the roof of another, and the breadth was 5 and 20 cubits, door against door. So he made also posts of 60 cubits, even unto the post of the court round about the gate. Now, key in on this word here in verse 14. He made. It's almost as if he's making it in his as Ezekiel's looking. This builder angel, maybe Jesus, the great builder, is making it right there in front of him. Boom! he made also the posts of 60 cubits. And so he's watching this happen. And from the face of the gate of the entrance unto the face of the port of the inner gate was 50 cubits. This is pretty big space. It's like, like 80 feet? A room that's 80 feet is substantial. Okay. And there were narrow windows to the little chambers, and to their posts within the gate round about. And of course, you want to have airflow. You want to have some light come in. Of course, the light is coming from inside, which is interesting. And likewise to the arches and the windows were round about inward, and upon each post were palm trees. The temple had these palm trees, and they keep finding bits and pieces of what was left of the temple and the palm tree. You know, the columns that David instituted when and then Solomon's temple. It has a very particular. It's on their coinage now, the columns of David, but it's a palm tree, symbolic of a palm tree. Verse 17, then brought he me into the outward court, and lo, there were chambers, and a pavement made for the court round about. 30 chambers were upon the pavement. And the pavement over by the side of the gates and over against the length of the gates was lower pavement. Now, these outer chambers would have been used for livestock, for storage of the tithes and things that were brought into the storehouse, okay? Things that were grain and all the things that were needful for the sacrificial system, okay? And for making your sacrifices, and also feeding not only the people but also the priests, because the priest would have a certain portion, like in Tel Shiloh, we'll call Shiloh. They keep finding only the right side of the animals, all these bones. Why is that? That's where the priests ate. That was their portion. They would eat, you know. And so the other part of the animal went home with the people after they made the sacrifice, and they ate. So interesting. So then he measured the breadth from the forefront of the lower gate unto the forefront of the inner court without, 100 cubits eastward and northward. And the gate of the outward court that looked toward the north, he measured the length thereof and the breadth thereof. And the little chambers thereof were 3 on this side and 3 on that side. And the posts thereof and the arches thereof were after the measure of the first gate. The length thereof was 50 cubits, and the breadth was 25 cubits. And their windows and their arches and their palm trees were after the measure of the gate. So it was very uniform, that looked toward the east, and they went up into it by 7 steps. And the arches thereof were before them. And the gate of the inner court was over against the gate towards the north and towards the east, and he measured from the gate to gate 100 cubits. After that, he brought me toward the south, and behold, a gate toward the south, and he measured the posts thereof and the arches thereof according to these measures. Now, on the Temple Mount area today, that southern gate is that golden gate, you know, that was the one that's sealed up. And so there's some issues with some of the beliefs, I guess, because we'll find it here in Ezekiel that it's not necessarily sealed up because people don't want Jesus to come back through there, because, I mean, come on. Jesus wanted to come through there. He's just going to come on through, and all that's going to be gone. Poof! But no, it's actually, we'll look at it's for the prince, and whoever this prince is, it doesn't necessarily say it's the Antichrist, but whoever this person is powerful enough that he has an easy access into the temple by the south door, and he sits in the gate, and he eats in the gate. Who is this person? We don't know yet. Again, but is a powerful ruler, or a ruler of Jerusalem, ruler of something. So there were windows in it, and arches thereof round about, like those windows, the other ones he talked about. And the length was 50 cubits, and the breadth 25 cubits. And there were 7 steps to go up to it, and the arches thereof were before them, and it had palm trees on this side, and another on that side, and upon the post thereof. So it was beautiful seeing the palms in stone. And there was a gate in the inner court toward the south, and he measured from gate to gate toward the south 100 cubits. Again, a uniform big square. And he brought me to the inner court by the south gate, and he measured the south gate according to these measures. Now, the size of this is over a mile square. It's pretty big. Just the old city itself is not even Jerusalem. It's not even a mile. So the Temple Mount, nowhere near a mile square. So something has to change within this. Obviously, the Temple Mount must not be there. Something's changed to be able to fit this on there. We know that when Jerusalem that's not made with human hands comes down out of heaven, that it is going to rest upon this region, and that it's 4 square. It's huge. It's 144 miles, right? So it's huge, and it's going to sit down. That's New Jerusalem. So we've got to kind of figure all these things out and try to jive them together. But God obviously is going to make this happen. And but this that we're looking at is going to be this particular building. It's not called temple here, but it's called a building for worship. Because the temple is going to be God, right? Who will be with man. Emmanuel. So, and the arches round about were 25 cubits long, 5 cubits broad. The arches thereof were toward the other court. Palm trees were upon the posts thereof, and the going up to it had 8 steps. Verse 32. And he brought me into the inner court toward the east, and he measured the gate according to these measures. And the little chambers thereof, and the posts thereof, the arches thereof were according to these measures, and there were windows therein, and arches thereof. Round about it was 50 cubits long, and 25 cubits broad. And the arches thereof were toward the outer court, and palm trees were upon the posts thereof, on this side and on that side. And the going up to it had 8 steps. And he brought me to the north gate, and measured it according to these measures, the little chambers thereof, the posts thereof, and the arches thereof, and the windows to it round about. The length was 50 cubits, and the breadth 25 cubits. Again, a uniform set, square pattern. The posts thereof toward the utter court, and the palm trees were upon the posts on this side and that side, and going up to it had 8 steps. And the chambers and the entries thereof were by the posts of the gates, where they washed the burnt offering. So this is not after they cooked it. They washed the blood before they put it up to be burned, evidently. And in the porch of the gate were 2 tables on this side and 2 tables on that side, to slay thereon the burnt offering, and the sin offering, and the trespass offering. And at the side without, as one goeth up to the entry of the north gate, were 2 tables, and on the other side, which was at the porch of the gate, were 2 tables. 4 tables were on this side, and 4 tables on that side, and by the side of the gate 8 tables, whereupon they slew their sacrifices. So this is a lot of sacrifices that are being planned to be processed. A good meat cutter can process meat pretty fast, and these were professional meat, handlers. And the 4 tables were of hewn stone for the burnt offering of a cubit. So the tables were made of stone, 1.5 cubits long, and 1.5 cubits broad, and 1 cubit high. A work table, basically, whereupon they laid the instruments wherewith they slew the burnt offerings and the sacrifice. And within were hooks and an hand broad fastened round about, and upon the tables was the flesh of the offering. So he could see the flesh of the offering already. He could see the tools, the hooks they would fasten into the meat so they could put it into the fire, so they could withdraw it out of the fire. Now, if it was a holy burnt offering, it would be burned up completely inside the fire, and they'd poke it till it completely was consumed. But the other would be pulled out and would be eaten, barbecue. And without the inner gate were the chambers of the singers of the inner court, which was at the side of the north gate, and their prospect was toward the south. So they were on the north, facing south, and the singers were up there on that part of the building. and they're looking southward and singing, and one at the side of the east gate, having the prospect toward the north. And he said unto me, This chamber, whose prospect is toward the south, is for the priests, the keepers of the charge of the house. And the chamber whose prospect is toward the north is for the priests, the keepers of the charge of the altar. And these are the sons of Zadok, among the sons of Levi, which come near to the Lord to minister unto him. So he measured the court 100 cubits long and 100 cubits broad, square, 4 square, and the altar that was before the house. And he brought me to the porch of the house, and he measured each post of the porch, 5 cubits on this side and 5 cubits on that side. And the breadth of the gate was 3 cubits on this side and 3 cubits on that side. And the length of the porch was 20 cubits, and the breadth 11 cubits. And he brought me by the steps whereby they went up to it, and there were pillars by the posts, one on this side and one on the other side. So pillar to post is an old southern saying. So I'm going to strap you pillar to post. Not a good thing. You're going to get a whooping, boy. But this porch it's very large. 11 cubits is very broad. 20 cubits stretching out. So you're talking like close to 40 feet, 38 feet. This is the one that's going to be built not now. This is the one that's because the one that's built for the yeah, the one that they're going to build now is going to be for the Antichrist, basically. Yeah. So
this is millennial reign.
Yeah, this will probably be the millennial reign time. Yeah.
And still will be having sacrifices.
Still having sacrifices. Why? It doesn't say why. So that's why. Is it a memorial for what Christ has already done? And this is specifically for the Jews, the Israelites.
Yeah.
So they have this inherent need that they want to fulfill what Moses told them to do, right? The Torah, and they want to do all those things that are written therein to feel fulfilled, and God knows that, and so He's allowing them to do that which is ingrained inside of them, and so very, very neat.
But he's not finished with the Jews yet. He's dealing with them forever.
Yes, well, it's His chosen people, and they're the light to us, the Gentiles. Yes.
The Old Testament rolls towards Christ, so everything on the other side of it, like you said, is a memorial and it rolls back to Christ.
Yeah.
But God trained them through methodology. It's sort of like training muscle memory. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
We train muscle memory in our children, and when we raise them, we train them in muscle memory. Worship was supposed to become muscle memory.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, that representation of the sacrifice, it's always been a representation. That's all it's ever
Yeah.
been.
Ever since the beginning of man.